and today I will be talking about a feature that we have been working on for a couple of years now that we call extended meta. First of all, what is extended meta? Well, meta in the NetWitness core system has always had a 256 byte limit. This limit has been there pretty much since the inception of the product. Work began in 12.3 to actually extend the maximum length of a meta, but considering how long the limit had actually been 256 bytes, it took a long time to actually get the feature into a releasable state. Extended meta allows users to configure specific meta keys to have what we call an extended value, that is, a value greater than 256 bytes. So the keys are extended directly in the language. And mind you, this is a per key configuration. You can see here that I have the query meta key, and using this new max value length attribute, I have edited the XML to basically tell Decoder that the meta query can have a maximum length of 4,096 bytes. And if the actual meta value is longer than that, then it will be trimmed at 4,096 bytes, just like today how it is trimmed at 256 bytes. This configuration can be configured directly into the index decoder files or the index log decoder.xml files. Now, we don't recommend that. This is also supported in the custom files for each one. The extended values need only be configured on the source machine, such as the decoder or the log decoder. They do not need to be configured on the aggregation services. Now, there is a hard-coded max. You can't do max value length equals 1 million. There is a hard-coded max of 4,096 bytes where Decoder will throw up an error and you will be forced to change it before Decoder can continue. As I mentioned, this is supported in packet decoder and then log decoder. And when you make changes to these key attributes here in the index file, at least for right now, that will require a restart of the decoder service. Let's now move on to a quick demo. Here on my laptop, I have a decoder running, and currently it only has one key defined as extended meta, this URL key, which we will not be using in this demo. So let me show you how many sessions are on the decoder, which right now is none. And what we're going to do is we're going to import a PCAP that has a very long query string in the data. So we've imported it, and now we got to give it a minute before it'll show up in the session database. And then here we go. So if I scroll all the way to the right, you can see this query string, and it looks like it's kind of being cut off by the value. And if you actually copy the value and you put it into something like a text editor to actually see how long it is, you can see that down at the bottom it's exactly 256 bytes. It's a very long value, and it most likely is being cut off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down Decoder. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into the index decoder custom XML file, and I'm going to uncomment out this modification for the query key, which you can see here that I have extended to 4,096 bytes. Now I'm going to restart Decoder. And if I look in the messages, in the log messages, you should see a log message that tells the user right here, language key query marked as an extended key with maximum length of 4,096 bytes. And I will replay the same exact PCAP as before. And once again, we have to give it a minute. And if I reload the sessions, we should see 4 sessions. And then here's the old one up at the top, which was cut off. If we go all the way over, you can see it's cut off. But if I scroll down, you can see that this value is much longer. And this is not a full 4,096 bytes. I think it's around 1,000, but I marked it, when I crafted this, I marked it as value Z to know that we have gotten the entire value. And that is a quick demonstration of extended meta. So performance impacts. Well, obviously, if you're going to be saving more data, things like the metadatabase and the index database, those can grow. But the metadatabase and the index database sizes, they can be larger because you're saving more metadata. And when those values of the metadata go into the index database, that's more data in the index database as well. The index database in general won't be as affected as the metadatabase. Query performance can also be affected. It depends on the type of query, really, but a good example is a contains call. Contains is already slow, but now a contains call, which before would only ever search 256 bytes, could search up to 4K. So that in and of itself is going to create performance issues. And then there's aggregation performance. And again, this is because the meta is actually bigger, and the meta is nothing but just bytes of data. And aggregation is nothing but the operation of downloading data. So now if you're generating up to 4, 5, 6 times as much data, that is going to have a non-trivial impact on performance. So usage recommendations. In Core, we recommend this often, is to make small observable changes. And what I mean by that is if a user has maybe 5 keys that they're seeing in their environment that get cut off consistently, they might want to start out by either adding just 1 key and seeing how that affects it, or they might want to start out adding all 5. However, instead of going straight to 4096 as the max length, maybe they could add all 5 and start out with each one going to 512 bytes. And then basically just playing around with the system little by little, and also giving the system time to incorporate those new changes into the data so that you can actually get a fair representation of how those changes affect performance. And it could be a slow process, but in our observations in PSR, this is while it's a powerful feature, it is also a feature that can really, hamstring performance if it's not implemented correctly or without forethought. So really, users need to think about what keys they want to extend and how big they want to extend them to. I don't think there's any value in extending everything right to 4096 if you know the value will never be more than 500 bytes long. And again, thank you for listening, and have a nice day.